Panic at the Disco has a history. Is that a good way to open this? Yeah, that's good. That's good. Panic at the Disco is a polarizing band. You either love the classic lineup and albums like A Fever You Can't Sweat Out and Pretty Odd, or you're one of the few people who don't viscerally hate Brendan Urie with your entire being. Personally, I'm a fan of both eras, the Ryan Ross and the Brendan Urie era. I grew up loving Ryan Ross's lyricism and the way he incorporated references to books and movies in his songs. As a kid who loved both films and literature, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I love Brendan Urie's vocals and showmanship. I always wanted to be a performer growing up, and Brendan Urie was always one of the artists that I always looked up to. I would spend so much time just trying to imitate his singing style. I chime in with the haven't you people ever heard of? It bums me out how the fandom is so split. You're either a Ryan girly or a Brendan defender.
¿Por qué no los dos?
Where am I going with this? Somewhere, I promise. Just give me a minute. Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Trevor and I am eternally uncool. I make videos about music, music culture, and anything that interests me. But mostly music right now. So if that sounds like something you'd be into, then I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and watching the rest of this video. A lot of Panic fans are nostalgic for the Ryan Ross years, which is understandable. The band burst onto the scene with a new sound, a unique look, and sophisticated and intricate lyrics that betrayed the members' young ages. Ryan Ross was the mastermind behind all of this. He was the co-founder after all. Ryan Ross's DNA is all over those first two albums. But I think the one that stands out the most is Panic's second album, Pretty Odd. This album has a lot of history to it, which I touched on in my Lost Albums video, which I'll link in the bio somewhere.
Watch it please, I need the views.
A brief summary is Panic at the Disco secluded themselves in the mountains of Nevada, got really high, and tried to write this huge concept love story album. They got about 3/4 of the way through writing and then just yeeted the whole thing and started from scratch. According to Crush Music co-founder Jonathan Daniel, he gave Ryan Ross 2 Beatles compilation albums. These two. And Ryan made them his entire personality. He channeled bands like The Zombies and Beach Boys to create an album that was a stark contrast to the theatrical emo of their debut. Ryan Ross became a retro rock enthusiast. This was the sound and aesthetic he was going for with Pretty Odd. That's the direction he wanted to take Panic at the Disco. He didn't care about alienating the fan base. Ryan Ross's emo phase was over. He was done with the eyeliner. The band toured with the Hush Sound and Phantom Planet, and that's where Ryan, as well as bassist John Walker, were sort of gravitating to. The band essentially split clean down the middle. Ryan and John on the side of retro rock and wanting to create something that was more mature and artistic. And Spencer and Brendan on the other side, still holding the torch for the fan base. Ryan wanted to tap into something a little bit deeper. Brendan was more focused on creating something entertaining. Neither of these things is the wrong thing. The split had to happen for everyone involved. So Ryan and John left, and Brendan and Spencer soldiered on and continued with Panic at the Disco as a duo. But what happened to Ryan Ross and John Walker and their Beatles-inspired nostalgia dreams? Today, I want to take a look at what happened after Panic's initial split. What did the other guys do? Did they continue with the vintage sound? Or did they burn out and fade away? If you're as big a Panic at the Disco fan as I am, you probably already know the answer. But if you don't, then today is your lucky day. So grab a drink, grab a snack, get comfy, and let's get into the video.
I'm John. That's Ryan.
That's not right.
We're in the Young Veins. I'm Ryan. That's John, actually.
In spring of 2009, Panic at the Disco was working on material for their third album. But that summer, Ryan and John would take to the band's official website to announce that they were leaving. Initially, Ryan Ross brought this up to band co-founder Spencer Smith earlier that year. Spencer and I had lunch and caught up for a while, and then the big question came up, like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I think it might be best if we kind of do our own thing for a while. And he said, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say the same thing. And there was really no argument, which is really the best way that could have worked out. Ryan Ross said that the split was due to creative differences between him and singer Brendan Urie. Ryan obviously wanted to continue with the vintage rock sound of Pretty Odd, while Brendan wanted to go in a more polished pop direction. So Ryan and John said, see ya, and bounced. They went and formed their own band.
With blackjack and hookers.
Not long after the split, Ryan and John announced via MTV that they were regrouping as the Young Vanes, a pop rock band with heavy retro leanings. They released their first single via MySpace on the same day that Panic at the Disco released their new song, New Perspective. I'm sure this wasn't on purpose. I don't think Ryan and John were trying to sabotage their old friends. I don't think they were that petty. But MTV sure tried to make it seem that way though, saying that the Young Vanes were trying to steal Panic's thunder. What a bunch of shit stirrers. Spencer Smith responded, no, I wasn't shocked or mad at all. We had about 3 weeks of people not knowing what was going on with the bands. And it's kinda nice that the music was released at the same time. See, they were cool. Get out of here, MTV. You suck anyway. Change is a pretty good debut single for what Ryan and John were trying to do. They wanted to continue on with the 60s garage rock sound that they had played with on Pretty Odd, and that's exactly what they did with Change. The song sounds like a B-side from some obscure 60s band that you find digging in the 45s at some dusty record store. The best kind of record store. It would have fit right in with the tracks on Pretty Odd. And Ryan Ross is pretty good as a singer. He'd sung backup on a few Panic at the Disco songs. But I don't know how many people were sure if he could front a band. Especially when the frontman of your old band was Brendan fucking Urie. One of the greatest frontmen of all time. But Ryan does a good job. He's got a good voice for this style of music. And the band's aesthetic, from album covers to photos, are all very 60s. I love when bands and artists commit to a gimmick. A lot of bands will start with a gimmick to get attention and then just drop it, and I'm like, why? Set yourself apart. The music video for Change sees the Young Vanes playing a kind of musical showcase, like something you might see in That Thing You Do. They're all wearing suits, they got long hair, vintage instruments, and it's in black and white. It's very minimal, but it does what it's supposed to. It presents the band to the world along with their desired aesthetic. On June 8th, 2010, the Young Vanes released their only album, Take a Vacation. Since this is the only time I'm probably gonna get to talk about the Young Vanes, I want to do a quick review of Take a Vacation. I say quick, but watch it be in about 15 to 20 minutes. The opener is the band's first single, Change, which we already talked about, so I'm not gonna waste a lot of time on here. Change is followed by the title track, Take a Vacation. This track was actually written a few months after the release of Pretty Odd. I wanted to look up the meanings to all of these songs, so I went where anywhere would go to find lyrical inspiration. Genius. Genius might not have been the best place to go. It's not edited by the songwriters. It's all just theories and ideas by contributors.
But it's all I got.
One theory about Take a Vacation is that it's about wanting a break. Whether it's a break from heavy touring, or the fame that Panic brought, or Panic itself, I don't know. Maybe Ryan was just tired of working. We've all been there. It's a pretty good song. It's a good introduction to the album. I think it should have been the opener, you know? open it with the title track, but hey, what do I know? I've never released an album. The title track is followed up by the song Cape Town. I really like the opening to this one. It reminds me of classic girl groups of the 60s. Ryan's vocals on this one are really good, really indie rock sounding, which is an interesting juxtaposition to the instrumental. After Cape Town, we get Maybe I Will, Maybe I Won't, a John Walker-led track. I was really surprised with this one. I knew John Walker had his own solo stuff, I knew he could sing, but I never really listened to it. When his vocals come in on this song, it's really surprising, especially after getting used to Ryan Ross for 2 or 3 tracks. John's voice is a little stronger than Ryan's, a little bit more mature. I feel like Ryan was still trying to find his style and his confidence as the front man of a band. John sounds more assured and confident. Walker explained the song in a Last FM performance.
In France, we played a radio show, like some big, huge pop radio television show with Enrique Iglesias, Coldplay, I think J-Lo might have been there, a few other artists and us. And we were in the middle of nowhere, France, in this big arena parking lot, locked in. Couldn't get in or out, so we were basically stuck in this parking lot for 12 hours while the show was going on. And that song, pretty much from start to finish, came out. Started because I lost my cell phone. I had no idea where it was.
Is that right? I don't remember that.
Find my phone.
So yeah, it's about being lost in a parking lot in France. Good song.
What do I know, baby, Woodrow? Doesn't it show people get old when they're alone? Maybe I will, maybe I won't.
The next track is The Young Vanes' Die Tonight. This one reminds me of the more rocky tracks on Pretty Odd, more high energy and upbeat. That's followed by Everyone But You, another John Walker track. This one is legitimately great. It sounds like it could have been a French girl group song. It's real dreamy, real poppy. I think I really like the John Walker tracks more than the Ryan Ross tracks as the album goes on. Nothing against Ryan, but John is putting his whole chest into it, man. The next track, The Other Girl, is kind of a slow burn build up to a Zombies-esque riff. This one is okay. It's not really one of my favorites. It just kind of sounds like a throwaway from Pretty Odd. Like a song that wasn't good enough to be a B-side, you know what I mean? The Other Girl is followed by Dangerous Blues, which sounds like it could be a slow dance song in a movie like Grease, some 1950s teenage love story. Next up we have Defiance, which I think is the best track on this entire album. It's got a great indie rock vibe with the right amount of retro flair.
A place we'd never been. Defiance.
I once again look to the geniuses at Genius to dive deeper into the meaning of this song. Obviously, the word defiant is defined as being defiant. Ryan Ross has said that this was a moment in his life that he was trying to be defiant. When he went against what he was told as a kid. He started a band, he experimented with things, he went against what was expected of him. He left an incredibly successful band to do what he wanted to do. He was defiant. There's also another possible origin to this song. In 2008, Panic at the Disco came across a bridge called Defiance, which would make a great name for a band, and I call dibs on it. I don't care, I call dibs. Later, John Walker would say that him and Ryan wrote the song on that bridge, which I don't know if that's true, but who knows, maybe they did. The next song, Lie to Me, is a slower number. It's okay. It's an unrequited love song. There was a lot of those in the emo scene in the mid-2000s. Nothing to write home about. That's followed by the closing track, Heart of Mine. This song features both Ryan Ross and John Walker singing leads. It's almost kind of like a duet. It's kind of nice. They harmonize really well. It's a sweet little love song. It kind of reminds me of the Beatles' When I'm 64. It's just a list of things that this man wants to do with his lover, stating that she'll always have this heart of mine.
Once you reach a certain level of success, there's a bunch of people that come around trying to tell you how you got successful and how you can continue to stay successful, and really they have no idea what they're talking about.
Neither do we.
But neither do we, so.
The album wasn't really commercially successful. I guess people were expecting Panic at the Disco 2.0, but what they got was indie rock with a retro twist. There wasn't anything really emo or pop punk about this. Even people who liked Pretty Odd at the time still enjoyed the emo and pop punk elements to the album. That's one of the things that made that specific album special. It was essentially an emo pop Beatles album. Take a Vacation is a much truer representation of retro rock worship, but I don't think that the fans who continued to follow Ryan and John's work really wanted that, unfortunately. John Walker has continued to promote the album, even all these years after its initial release. He even released a deluxe edition in 2019 and a remastered edition in 2023. Do I think Take a Vacation is better than Pretty Odd? No. Not even close. Pretty Odd is a certified classic. It has so many bangers. Take a Vacation is a good album, don't get me wrong. It's a very good album. Well made, great production, but it just doesn't compete with the Panic album. Pretty Odd had all the ingredients to create something special. Brendan's vocals, Ryan's writing, the band as a unit, and while there were other members of the Young Vanes, it really felt like a Ryan and John project. Maybe more of a Ryan project, if I'm being honest. The Young Vanes were a band for less than a year. They released one album, toured a bit, and then fucked off. They went on an indefinite hiatus shortly after releasing Take a Vacation. Was lack of commercial success a factor in the band's demise? Or was it something else? In 2019, Ryan Ross went on the My Friend podcast and said that Take a Vacation was the first thing in his career that was not an instant success. Panic at the Disco was a big deal right out of the gate. A Fever You Can't Sweat Out was a massively successful debut. Pretty Odd, while being a divisive album at the time, was still seen as a bold and ambitious move for such a young band. Then he left that successful band thinking he could take that success somewhere else. Ross really believed that Take a Vacation would be just as big as Fever. He said on the podcast, talking about the album's lack of success, having that fall through so quickly, that was the first thing in my career that didn't go right. I didn't know what that was like. I was just like, oh, so not everything you do turns to gold. I didn't think that I needed to check my ego, but after that happened, I was like, oh yeah, this is not how things work. Because things just don't always work out. In a 2011 interview with the website Property of Zach, John Walker talked about the reasons behind the Young Vanes split, albeit kind of vaguely. He said, I really enjoyed the material and was hopeful that our new venture would create a balanced partnership, but our differences made that difficult. Just like with Panic at the Disco, it was creative differences that split the Young Vanes. But what were those creative differences? I don't know. I do not know. I searched far and wide. Some people on Reddit say Ryan killed the band but didn't really elaborate on it. Others said that it was the disappointment at the album response, mixed with their van being broken into and all their gear being stolen, that just kind of took the excitement out of the project. I don't really know about that one, but I couldn't find anything on the creative differences. Maybe Ryan and John wanted to try something different with the Young Vanes. Maybe push the project in a different direction. And maybe the other didn't want to go in that direction. Maybe they both wanted to try something different, but they couldn't agree on exactly what that something different should be. It's kind of ironic and poetic that creative differences would split Panic at the Disco and birth the Young Vanes, but also split the Young Vanes. Maybe Ryan found a style that spoke to him more than those Beatles comps did. Who knows? Only Ryan Ross and John Walker know. And Ryan Ross doesn't have much of a social media presence these days. And John Walker won't answer my emails.
We're just going to see what happens. We're going to be playing and writing and moving on and doing what we do and playing birthday parties if you can come up with the cash.
The Young Vanes were a very interesting band. You had two very talented musicians from one of the biggest bands of the 2000s breaking off to try their own thing. But due to whatever reason, they just couldn't find the success that they expected. They released a pretty good album that was really unique for that time, but fans weren't really into it. It has gotten more love in the following years though, especially with Young Panic fans, which I think is really cool. I hope the Young Vanes garner more of a following. And who knows? Maybe they could do a reunion tour. Stranger things have happened. Are you a fan of the Young Vanes? Or are you just discovering them now? Let me know in the comments. That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, then I highly recommend hitting that like button and sharing this video with everyone you know.
Everyone?
Everyone.
I'm a small independent creator who does pretty much everything on his own. Every like, comment, share, any interaction with this video at all really helps me out to reach other people who might be interested in what I'm doing. My new goal is to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year. It's asking a lot, I know, but let's see if we can make it happen. With all that being said, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Trevor. Stay uncool. And that's the end of the video. Goodbye.